Hello, everyone. Welcome to C Dreaming Day 2. Thanks for joining us in this session. We have our speaker, Joey, to talk about the topic, build slick guided user experiences without code with OmniStudio. If you have any questions, just put in the live Q&A section in the add hash. Over to you, Joey. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to C Dreamin 2021. I am Joey Chan. And first of all, thank you to our sponsors. For our platinum sponsors, we have Accenture, USD, Form Assembly, and Validity. And for our gold sponsors, we have Apistoki and Communicator. Thank you also to our support from Salesforce and Capital. So I'm here to talk to you about being able to build slick guided user experiences without code with OmniStudio. So who am I? I'm Joey Chan. I'm the founder and technical architect at Cloud Generate Solutions. We help companies in their digital transformation. So we actually specialize in quite a lot of custom development work and a lot of integration work. So I'm also a Salesforce MVP, the #1 rated developer on the App Exchange. I am 19 times Salesforce certified. I'm also the organizer of the Philippines Dreamin and one of the organizers for the C Dreamin. I've also been privileged to be a guest in the Salesforce Developer Podcast, and I currently lead the Trailblazer community group here in the Philippines. All right, so for the agenda for today, so first of all, I'll be talking about what is OmniStudio, why am I excited about it, how it looks like, and how we can actually learn more. So what is OmniStudio, right? So it's basically a suite of tools that came from a company called Velocity. Salesforce acquired Velocity way back in 2020. So they actually specialize in building industry-specific cloud applications. So it means that, for example, they build apps on top of Salesforce that cater specifically to certain industries, like, for example, telecommunications. So with this acquisition, it actually enhanced the previous capability of Salesforce industries. In the past, we only had financial services, health cloud, government, manufacturing, and consumer goods. But with this acquisition, it actually added these new clouds, right? So we now have communications cloud, media and entertainment, energy and utilities. And it actually also enhanced the financial services, health cloud, and government cloud with additional capabilities because of OmniStudio. So what is OmniStudio? So it's basically a digital engagement suite. So what that means is that it's composed of certain components and certain services that allow a company to actually speed up the digital transformation. So it also allows a user to build guided experiences without necessarily any code. In the past, way before screen flows, quite a lot of these experiences need to be built in code, right? So whether it's in Visual Force or Lighting Components. It's also formerly known as Velocity Interaction Studio. So why am I excited about this? First of all, OmniStudio will actually be part of the Salesforce core. So what this means is that in the past, currently, it's still basically a managed package on top of the Salesforce platform. It means that all of the code base is actually running on Apex. So what will happen during this transition is that all of the processing, all of the logic, and things like those will actually be running on the Java layer of Salesforce. What this means is actually quite a lot of performance gains and speed improvements, right? So there's actually some use cases wherein it could actually increase the performance up to 400% compared to how we have it right now. And one of the benefits of it is actually in terms of governor limits, right? So it can actually help remove or increase some of the governor limits that we have whenever we're dealing with Apex. So another one is it's actually an enterprise grade user guided processes. So we all know we have screen flows, right? But one of the problems with screen flows, especially on an enterprise environment, is actually quite hard to do automated testing on top of it, right? But with OmniStudio, it actually has built-in components to allow automated unit testing. And one of the biggest important thing about OmniStudio, it actually speeds up this development time. There's actually a use case that we'll be talking about later on, wherein there's actually a integration requirement that could take up to 42 days if it were to be built using Apex. But that same thing can actually be built in 1 day if you were to use integration procedures within Salesforce OmniStudio. Another big thing, especially for those out there looking to learn about OmniStudio, it's really the talent scarcity. Right now, based on unofficial numbers, there's probably 2 to 3 million Salesforce developers out there around the world. But for OmniStudio, I don't know, there's probably less than 100,000 around the world right now that actually knows OmniStudio and can build on top of it. And one of the things that I'm really expecting right now is that demand will actually skyrocket once OmniStudio is actually available to customers outside the Salesforce industries. So there's quite a lot of demand already. The way I've been speaking to several folks, Salesforce is actually pushing OmniStudio a lot to their customer in their Salesforce industry. So I'm expecting the demand that we had in the past 5 years with the Salesforce developer, and probably this is probably going to happen so much more with OmniStudio. So what is it, right? So OmniStudio is basically composed of different layers. The first one being the digital experience. So this is what basically the users would see. Under this would be the flex cards and OmniScripts. Flex cards is basically a summarized contextual information about a certain topic. So it could be, for example, customer information. It could also be showing you, let's say for an account, it could be showing you all of the contacts within it and all of the cases. For OmniScripts, it's actually a guided user experience, right? So what this means is that it actually is quite similar to screen flows. So it can actually help a user go through multiple steps of a process. And depending on certain conditions, like depending on their answers in the first few steps, we could actually have conditional logic and execute other processes, other batch processes, any other automations, and things like those. So for the service management layer, we have integration procedures and data raptors. So integration procedures are server-side processes. So you could think about it like things happen in either Apex or flows, wherein the servers is doing all the processing. And one of the biggest benefits in using integration procedures is actually being able to integrate with third-party systems without necessarily needing any code. So for large organizations, typically there are legacy systems that need to be considered. And integration procedures help a lot in terms of getting data, pushing data, and things like those without any Apex or any other coding sorry. So what is Data Raptor? So it's basically a lightweight ETL tool. So what it allows you to do, ETL means extract, transform, and load. So it can actually extract data from Salesforce. So meaning with SQL queries, SOSL, searching Salesforce. It can also transform data. So meaning, depending on the format that you have, it can transform, let's say, JSON to another format like XML. It can actually also transform the data into a custom format that you may need. And then load, meaning it can actually update records. Let's say it could do the insert, update, upsert, delete, so those operations. So along with that is the developer experience. Since this is meant to be enterprise grade, we need to have tools that would help the enterprise really build robust systems, right? So it actually provides the IDX build tool and the IDX workbench. So this is actually what a flex card could look like. So take note, this is just a simple demo. So it's not necessarily that pretty, but this is something that you could actually style pixel perfect depending on what brand you have, right? So you'll see here on the left, you could actually see the information about the contact, primary contact of an account. And on the right side, the nice thing about this is that this data is actually quite dynamic. Depending on the zip code or the postal code of the account, you could actually show the weather within that area. So it can actually pull the city, state, condition, and temperature. And along with that are the contacts and cases linked to that account. So this is another view that the previous one, wherein it's actually showing us the condition, the temperature. And this part in number 4 is called a flyout. So what this means is that within the flex card, you could click on something and then show additional information. So as soon as you click on this, it can actually show you what are the different conditions within that, basically the weather condition within the next 5 days. So a quick demo. So this is actually how it looks like in real. So from here, you could click on the 5-day forecast to show a table. This, and then from here it can actually show you different contacts and different case information, right? In the back end, this is actually how the flex card would look like. So we have the build tool. You could actually add fields, icons, images, menus, text here, and then we have different states. For example, you could actually easily drag and drop text here as needed. All right. And then the next one is OmniScript. Like I said, it's basically allowing a user to go through guided steps, right? So in this case, there are multiple different screens that would guide them through the process. So protection for homeowners, home details. This is specific to home insurance. So this is another view of an OmniScript that you can actually build. So you can actually build a shopping cart experience for the users, right? So you'll notice it's a lot nicer because you could actually have your own styling on top of it. So this is a demo of how an OmniScript looks like. So in this case, we can actually see different cases, right? From here, we can actually execute an OmniScript from this flex card. So I can click on this. This is basically an OmniScript. It's a one-step OmniScript wherein we could change and remove subject, and then next. It would then save it to the record itself. Take note, this is just something simple, but of course you could have it as complex as you can, depending on the needs. So in terms of the back end, this is actually how an OmniScript looks like. So what we have here is basically different steps that a user would take. In this case, we have what we call an integration procedure, right? So remember, this is a server-side process. In this case, we're actually getting the case details from the server by a data raptor. that would then get the record from the database. And then in this case, this is the step. This is what you would a user would see within the case, right? And then as soon as the next button is clicked, we have another integration procedure that would then save the case details. And then this is the one that would then navigate the user back to the case itself. All right. Going back. So what are some of the capabilities, right? So we have, it actually provides a rich interface. It is also a microservices client and omni-channel deployment. So I'll go through each one of this. So it actually supports conditional logic, exception flows, document integration. So it can actually generate documents for you. So you could think about it something like Rolo or Conga. It actually can also have capabilities to have pixel perfect branding. When I say microservices client, it's basically allowing both OmniScripts and FlexCards to consume third-party APIs. Like in the demo earlier, it's actually consuming an API, a weather API, to provide us with information about the weather within that specific location. Third one is omni-channel deployment. So one of the limitations of screen flows is that it has limits in terms of where it can be deployed, right? So the power of OmniScript is it can actually run even outside Salesforce. So even external system like Adobe or Heroku, right? It has that capability. So one of the advantages of OmniScript is basically drag and drop capabilities, rapid prototyping. So you can basically create multiple different screens without necessarily having a lot of time in terms of building out the custom logic behind that. It has a lot of branching capabilities, and it also allows us to build integration with other systems. So I'll show you how the backend looks like, right? So these are the different components within this specific record, but these are the different actions that you could do. So you could actually extract data, delete records. You could also integrate with DocuSign here, email, PDF, creation of PDF, HTTP action. You could also display certain text. In this case, we have input fields, right? There are also functions for you to aggregate, create formulas. And then these are components that allow you to do certain things depending on certain conditions, like allow the user to edit records. And then you have multiple input options. So similar to screen flows, you can actually have dates, currencies, date times, and things like those. And then from here, you could also execute other OmniScripts that's available within the system. So there's quite a lot of flexibility and reuse, and there's quite a lot of customization features. Next one is Data Raptor. So it's basically allowing a user to do the extract, transform, and load, right? So getting data from Salesforce, updating records, and being able to also populate a fillable PDF, right? And also integrate with DocuSign. So this is how it looks like. I'll be able to show a demo. So from here, you're basically telling the system, hey, I want to pass in the account ID here and get me the account with these specific fields. And then a demo of it. So this is a demo. So we have here specified account ID. And then we specify within the output are the field specific that we'd want to get. So in this case, postal code, ID, name, phone, and website. So this is a preview. We can then simply execute it. And it actually gives us this data that we can then use in our screens. And you'll see on the right, it's actually generating the SQL query for us. All right. From here, you could also have different options in terms of transforming the data and some additional advanced customization. So the integration procedure. So it is a server-side process that can chain multiple processes. So we have it here. Like I said, I'll show you a sample of it. It's an OmniScript, and this is the integration for getting the weather. So here we're basically getting the count information. So we're getting the postal code here. And then we have here the API key. We're setting the API. This is the part where we're getting the weather information, the current weather and the forecast weather. This is the part where we're giving the 5-day forecast. And then we also have the form itself to actually show. All right. So it allows drag and drop. It allows you to call data raptors and other services. It can allow you to both run a process synchronously and asynchronously, and also batch processing. Conditional logic, error handling, this, and call from any REST client. So it can actually be done outside Salesforce and also using Apex. It also has built-in versioning. So this is the part where we're actually quite interested in terms of capabilities and speed of development, right? These two are basically showing some examples. Like if you were to build an easy integration, it could take 120 minutes, but 30 minutes for OmniStudio. For a complex integration, it could take Apex 42 days to build, but 1 day for OmniStudio. So next one is, these are the current certifications that you can actually get within the Salesforce ecosystem right now that has been ported. So we have OmniStudio Consultant, Developer, and Industry CPQ. Take note, these are the only ones ported to the Trailhead right now, but there's actually much more certifications available in the Velocity University. They haven't been ported yet, right? And then question is, how can you learn more now that you know some sneak peek of the feature set? So I've actually been blogging about that in our website. So from here, you could actually learn OmniStudio. And then from here, there's actually quite a lot of information that I've compiled throughout my research in the ecosystem. So it allows both Velocity or Salesforce Industries customers and partners to actually access additional information. But for those that aren't partners, you could actually already start going through the Trailhead modules available. So from here, you could actually go through the build guided experiences with OmniStudio. And this is the link where you could actually sign up for your own org that would allow you to play around with this feature. And then we also have different videos that I recommend going through the Apex Hours video, and then the official Salesforce Architects blog. We also have videos from the Trailhead Live, Salesforce Industry Summit. So imagine it like Dreamforce specifically for Salesforce Industries. And you also have Trailhead Academy courses for those that are interested in deep diving and really learning more about what OmniStudio can provide. With that, thank you for having me. Hope you learned something and looking forward to meeting you. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You could find me at Joey Chan or via Twitter at CloudJedi_C. So really, I'd love to hear from you wherever you are in your journey. If you're stuck in something, feel free to reach out. So thank you again. And that's it.
All right. The great presentation. OmniStudio certainly looks very slick. And well, personally, I don't really know OmniStudio, but I would like to learn more about it. And to kick off the questions, I think we got some questions in the Q&A section. But to kick it off, maybe just one question from my side. Do we need additional licenses to use the OmniStudio feature, or does it come
Yeah.
with like a Salesforce, the sales or service cloud license?
Yes, there's actually a need to get that, but currently,
Mm,
take note, it's only available to Salesforce Industries customers. So if you're
mhm,
a financial institution, let's say in the communications, right now it's not yet open to the whole ecosystem, only Salesforce Industries customers for now. But I've heard that there are
mm.
plans to expose that. So stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, let's move on to the question from the Q&A section. I see there are few questions related to the certification. So one is the prerequisite for certification, and another one is related to the guide. How do we prepare for the OmniStudio certification?
All right. So in
Mm,
terms of prerequisite, there's
mm,
actually not really a, a tight prerequisite in terms of taking the OmniStudio developer or the OmniStudio consultant certification, but it's highly recommended that you go
mm.
through the basic Salesforce first. So for those that are just starting, I mean, just get the app builder or the admin first, ideally. That way, you know how to navigate Salesforce, and then you basically get that on top of it, right? But you could actually go directly and just take that, even though you don't have the app builder or admin yet. All right. And with regards to
Mm,
guidance in terms of certification, I've actually posted some links for those that are interested in getting those two certifications. Of course, Trailhead is still the best source of information for all of those. So just make sure that you go through the trail mixes in terms of preparing for that. And one of the most important thing is really make sure you try out the features, right? Uh, there's definitely a possibility for you to pass the exam without going through it, but it's only until you actually start using it and adopting it before you can actually learn and really apply the concepts. All right.
all right. Thank you, Joey. And the next question that we have is, what are the limitations of flex cards in OmniStudio?
All right. In terms of
Mm, mm,
limitations, there aren't really that much specific in terms of limitations. I would say the limitations would be based on what you need and your imagination. The thing is, it's like a blank canvas, and you could actually do quite a lot of things there, right? Of course, you may want to limit the things that a user would see, mainly for user experience, right? But the functionality in itself, there's no specific limitation. So whatever you can build using Lightning Web Components, you can actually build using flex cards. It's really just a matter of understanding what are the user requirements, what is the best user experience. Of course, you don't necessarily want to put too many things on the page because that would confuse the users, right? And take note, flex cards are actually simply being in the back end. It's actually simply creating Lightning Web Components for you. Instead of having a developer create that manually using code, it's basically a code builder for you. All right.
okay, thank you, Joey. Well, yeah, from the presentation, you can see that the features is quite similar to flows and what we have in the platform of Salesforce. So there's a question about the similarities to screen flow. So how does the features of OmniStudio compare to screen flow? What is the differences?
Right. All right. So specifically, it's actually OmniScripts and
Mm,
screen flows that are being compared a lot. That's one of the things that I've noticed as when I went through the course and I was learning it. Basically, of course, Salesforce is really pushing flows a lot, right? The thing is, for OmniScripts, it has actually quite a lot more features, right? Like I said, it can actually integrate with third-party systems. It can actually have pixel perfect branding, meaning if you have your own brand, you could actually build your own shopping cart. So, for example, let's say you may be a telecom and you want your customers to be able to buy a specific iPhone plan, set their own data limits, build a package. That's something that you could build um, using OmniScripts without actually writing any code. But take note, if you want to extend it using Lightning Web Components, you still can, similar to ScreenFlows, right? One of the biggest benefits too is basically testing. Since it's really meant to be enterprise grade, there are built in tools to allow you to automate the testing. As compared to ScreenFlows, it's something that you don't necessarily have without using third-party tools, right? And one of the biggest things there is really the capability of like declarative automation, and everything can be built declaratively. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Joey. Okay, let's move on to the next question. To which kind of business, e.g., small, medium size, or emerging small businesses, we think that OmniStudio will be benefit the most?
All right. In terms of businesses, right now, the most of the benefits would actually fall in the medium to larger businesses. The thing is, even though these features are going to be beneficial for smaller businesses, currently it's limited to Salesforce industries. The ones that would benefit a lot are companies like, for example, telecoms. They usually have legacy systems, let's say for building their order management, right? So they need to integrate with their inventory. All of these combined and being able to connect to all of those older systems through HTTP request without any code is actually where the most of the benefit is. So a lot of these are mostly building guided user experiences, right? Building automated processes for example, for your customers, for your partners, for even internal employees. All right.
All right. Thank you for the answer. And we have another question here. How do you see the current and future marketing trends with perspective to customer adoption towards industry scope?
With regards to marketing trends, I'm not too clear in terms of what you mean here, but in terms of trends for industries, the thing is, I'm personally bullish on Omnis Studio, mainly because I feel that this is something that very few people know about currently. That's the same reason why I'm talking about this, is for other people to actually get to a chance to learn more about this and get ahead of the curve, right? Like I said earlier, in terms of opportunities for career, there's still few people that know OmniStudio versus, let's say, a standard Salesforce developer, right? So there's going to be a lot of opportunities because of it's all about supply and demand, right?
Okay, thank you, Joey. And there's a follow-up question from Sunil. It's also related to certification. What should be the first certification in velocity I must attain to kickstart my journey with the
Yep.
industry scope?
I would say depending on your background, you would go for either the consultant one or the developer one. Mainly because either of these is something that you should take. I would recommend you just take it within 1 week apart from each other, though, because the time it takes for you to learn the tool, you'd be able to apply both knowledge in both developer and consultant. So it's really just a matter of studying it once and then just take both certifications.
All right. Thank you, Joey.
Yep.
Uh,
Just to add,
let's
by the
see.
way, regarding current and future marketing trends, I'm not sure if you're talking about this from a Salesforce point of view, but basically, like I said earlier, Salesforce is really pushing this technology a lot for their industry's customers, and more companies are really seeing the ROI in this specific application. There are companies spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in development, and there's a real ROI in terms of adopting OmniStudio. I believe at the minimum, it could save at least 30% in terms of development time. And it could also skyrocket from there depending on the use cases, right? Like earlier I mentioned, there's actually a use case where if somebody were to build it using OmniStudio, it could only take 1 day. But if you were to build it manually using Apex, it could take up to 40 plus days because of all of the things that needs to be built alongside.
Mhm. Thank you. So there's another question about the demo instance. How do we get an demo org that we can actually try on?
Yep.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, there's actually a link in the blog that I created that takes you directly to the page where you can request basically a developer org that contains OmniStudio. So you could try it out. Take note that in the past, it's not available. So basically, it only started to be available outside the whole partner ecosystem, I believe last June of this year. So everyone can now learn, and it used to be proprietary. So it's the chance for everyone to start learning this and get ahead, right? Mhm.
Okay. So maybe the last question. So how can we get access to Velocity University like Trailhead? So is it available as a module on Trailhead Commons?
It's actually a separate website. You
Mhm.
could, unfortunately, currently, you have to be either a Salesforce Industries customer or a Salesforce partner to be able to get in. So that's one of the biggest hurdle right now. But take note, all of the documentation for Velocity is actually publicly available now. So you could go to, I believe, docs.velocity, and then you should be able to see
Mm.
all of the documentation publicly. Let me check, docs.velocity.com.
Okay, so you share the links with the audience.
Yes, I'll send it over now.
Mhm. Okay, that's great.
Right?
I think, yeah, that's the last question that we can answer. We don't have much time left. Okay, thank you, Joey, again for the presentation today, and thank you all for participating in the session. So
All right.
we'll
Thank you
see
for
you in the
having me.
next session. Yep, thank you.
Bye bye.